everyone, welcome back. This is Varushka, your anxiety wing girl. On today's video, I'd like to talk to you about a topic that unfortunately has a lot of taboo. And that is the topic of medication in regards to taking medication in regards to any type of mental illness such as anxiety, panic attacks, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, PTSD. You know, some of those are a little bit stronger, but in general, in the holistic world, which I'm very much part of, I very much believe in trying to use food and exercise and breathing techniques and yoga and meditation and all things holistic to improve your quality of life, to improve your mindset, your mood, versus, let's say if you have a headache, I prefer to take or to put some essential oils on and, you know, maybe take a nice cool shower versus taking Advil unless it's really strong, okay? Just because I feel that I'm really cautious of what I put into my body. However, there comes a moment where some things are much stronger than you and it's biochemical, and it doesn't matter how much meditation and breathing and yoga and exercise you do. Sometimes you really do need medication in order to control certain things. Before I get into this video, I just want to make sure that everyone knows I am not any type of licensed physician, a doctor. I'm not here to diagnose you or to tell you that you should be taking any medication. You know, that's strictly on you. I'm just here to share my personal story, my journey that I've had with anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and the steps that I've taken and the experiences that I've had along the way to hopefully give you some guidance, or, you know, maybe you resonate with some of the things that I'm saying and it could help you. But please go to your doctor. You know, do not take anything that I'm saying and think that that's what you need. Everyone is very unique and different, okay? So just to share a little bit about my story, about 20 years ago, I started to experience my first panic attack. I had no idea what it was. It scared the living daylights out of me, and little by little, they started to get worse, and I really didn't go to the doctor because I was scared of what I was feeling, and I was scared of doctors. To make a long story short, about maybe 15 years ago, I finally went to the doctor, let them know everything that I was experiencing, and the doctor told me that I was experiencing not regular anxiety. Everyone experiences anxiety at one point in your life. Anxiety is just a way of telling you that something is not aligned with you, something's off, or maybe you're experiencing a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, and your body just kind of goes into that fight or flight mode, or you might feel nervous, or, you know, things might be very intense, but those things are manageable. Now, everyone experiences that at some point with something going on in their life. When you have anxiety disorder, and take it further, panic disorder, it's when it becomes chronic, and it's not just one episode or 2 episodes, it's constant in your life. You constantly 24/7 feel anxious, worried, fearful, and that then starts to produce the physical, which are the panic attacks. If you have 1 or 2 panic attacks, most people have experienced a panic attack in their life. But at the point where I was experiencing probably 6 and 7 panic attacks a day, and they were completely ruining my quality of life because I was having those panic attacks. I became terrified of the places and the things that I was doing when I did have those panic attacks. So I finally went to the doctor, and he put me on medication. I'm not going to share what it is, just because, again, that's personal and it's very unique to me, and I think everyone responds differently to different medications, so it's really important that you speak to your doctor and get properly diagnosed and medicated for what you need. But I had a medication, and that medicine immediately started to make me feel better. We can go into a lot of different conversations with this, and we will, okay? Medication is not a cure. It does not take panic disorder away. What it does, it's kind of like a Band-Aid, okay? It keeps the physical symptoms, it minimizes them, so then you can go and work with a therapist or some type of mental health counselor to go deeper into the root of what is triggering that panic in your body. And that could come from childhood trauma, from conditioning of certain fears. A lot of people have had, unfortunately, some type of abuse, maybe with their family members or in a relationship. I've never experienced that. But it could be a traumatic event of somebody dying, of having a car accident, and then that produces panic attacks every time, or phobia every time you get back into the car, because your body imprints, your mind imprints, and it thinks it's going to experience that, and then you keep experiencing it over and over. It is very difficult to get over or let me rephrase that. It is very difficult for you to work with the phobias and try to desensitize the phobias and the cognitive part, right? Which are the fears that have already been embedded when you are having those physical responses, because those physical responses are terrifying. When you have a panic attack, you have all sorts of sensations where your heart beats like it's gonna come out of your mouth. You get sweaty, you get cold, you tremble, you can get dizzy, you can get short of breath. A lot of people think that they're having a heart attack. You feel like you're going to faint because you just have, you start to shake. And it's a very, very fearful sensation. And you get a rush of fear that goes inside of you. So you can't really, unless you're extremely strong, and some people can do it, but it depends on the intensity. How long have you experienced this for? How many panic attacks have you had? How deeply embedded are these phobias in you? It is very difficult to desensitize those phobias when you are having the physical responses. Now, I want to share in particular my story. So for me, when I was diagnosed, I got on the medication, and that automatically started to make me feel a lot better. Little by little, over the course of about, I want to say 10 years, I started to seek a therapist. I started to really do the inner work that allowed me to see where all of this was stemming from. When was it triggered? What were the things that triggered it and the things that keep triggering it? And slowly, little by little, start to desensitize myself by facing these either things that I became phobic of, and also dealing with what we call trauma. Trauma just means what happened, what was the primary cause of what triggers these attacks. So for me, a lot of it was there's twofold, okay? So there is that component of something that happened to you. But I strongly believe, and there's a lot of different talk about this, okay? Some psychiatrists say, no, panic attacks are psychological, where you do not have a chemical imbalance. And it's something that's so deeply embedded that you keep experiencing. But when you experience it so much, it actually changes they're called the neurotransmitters in your brain, where it creates a thought process or a new synapses of your brain that now your brain really thinks that there is something scary, real going on, and you constantly keep experiencing that, okay? Some psychiatrists say that. Others say that no, it is really biochemical, and you really don't produce enough serotonin or some type of chemical in your brain that you need medication to stabilize that, and that kind of never really goes away. There are many different theories. I wish I knew the answer. I think everyone is so bio-individual, which means you are just unique in your own way. And not every person experiences the same thing. Everybody experiences something different. Everybody responds to different types of therapies, and everybody responds to different types of medications. My story is that when I was diagnosed, I got on medication and I really started to do the work. And it took a good 13 years to get to a point where I finally felt like I wasn't experiencing anxiety. It was never in the forefront of my brain, which is always there, right? It's always like if you have anxiety or panic, you know that it's kind of always here lingering. It's like a little monster that's always lingering on top of you, telling you like, be careful because this is going to happen and you're going to go into panic attack. And that's a very real response that is constantly happening. So about, I want to say about 3 years ago, I was my healthiest person. I had done all my research. I knew exactly where my panic attacks stemmed from, and it was from conditioning from a child. I had changed my diet. I studied nutrition. I changed my diet. I cut sugar out. I was never a big caffeine person, but I cut caffeine out anyway, like from chocolate. I ate super healthy. I worked out about almost every day. I did some form of physical activity. I started to meditate. I started to do yoga. I started to really be mindful of my environment, who I surrounded myself with, what information was I feeding my brain. I wouldn't watch any movies that were dark, or I would really stay away from anything that triggered that anxiety for me. And I felt my very, very, very best. I had conquered so many things. Now, I had been taking medication at that point for about 13 years. And I said to myself, being the holistic hippie that I am, I said, you know, I really want to do this on my own. I really don't think I need this medicine. It probably doesn't do anything for me anymore. I've been taking it for so long. I'm in a complete different space. I want to see what my body does without this medicine. I did not feel comfortable knowing that I had to rely on a medication for chemicals in my brain in order for me to function and feel well. And, you know, I was so immersed in that holistic wellness world, and everyone saying, you know, do your breathing and do your meditation. And part of me wanted to see, okay, do I really need this medicine? And is this something that is really doing something for me? And I can do this on my own. I didn't feel comfortable again, knowing that I had to rely on a chemical for my brain. So I talked to my doctor about it. And if you're in this place, do not do this on your own. Speak to your doctor. You cannot get off these medications for overnight. You will have a massive relapse, and you know, you can have a lot of negative repercussions. You can have seizures because this is a legit chemical that you're putting into your brain. But I spoke to my doctor, I spoke to my therapist, and I said, you know, I feel the best I've ever felt in my life, and I'd really like to know what I would be like without the medicine. I thought that this medicine was not doing anything for me. It was just kind of like whatever. I was taking it. I was in a very, very low dose and just wanted to experiment. So I slowly tapered off under my doctor's instructions, or supervision, I should say, I did that for almost like over 6 months. So very, very little. I decreased the dose, and then I started every other day until my birthday about 3 years ago, that I said, okay, this is the day I'm going to finally like stay off. And I have to say, I was good for about 4 or 5 months. I felt the same. I felt amazing. I was driving. I stayed on course with all of my things. I kept eating super healthy. I kept working out. I kept doing yoga. I meditated every morning. I was super into my wellness and, you know, my mindset. I was in an integrative nutrition coach at that time, and I had clients, and I was feeding off their energy and seeing everybody really prosper, you know, going the holistic way. And then little by little, about 6 months in, I started to just get these little waves of panic, which I hadn't experienced in a very, very long time. Now, your brain is incredible how it imprints very quickly and how memories stay in there, because the second that I felt these little waves of panic, all of a sudden, all the red lights went back on, and we're like, whoa, Verushka, what's happening? I know this horrible, dreadful feeling. I didn't pay much mind to it. I just said, okay, you know, everyone experiences anxiety. It could have been, at that point, it was work that was triggering me. I also remember that one time I had a piece of chocolate early in the morning, and my blood sugar wasn't stable, and that produced a panic attack, a dizzy spell while I was driving, which then started to create that panic sensation again. So very quickly, within a few months, it went downhill very, very quickly. And I went from just having random little waves, sensations of anxiety, to having full-blown panic attacks every couple of weeks to almost daily. And then it got to the point within a couple of months from that it just, that doom feeling was back. I started to become afraid of driving because I would get panic attacks when I was driving, and I would feel like I was gonna pass out and lose control while I was driving. And I started to get them all the time, and very quickly, within a couple of months, I regressed right back to where I was from day one when I first started to get panic attacks, like 13, 14 years before that. And I had done so much work to get to where I was, and that just went downhill, like super fast. Like if it was day one, ground zero, right back to where I started. So I spoke with my doctor and I said, you know, I think I need to get back on the medicine because obviously something is very off. And my doctor, and I spoke about it, and he says, you know, there's nothing wrong with taking medication. Some people just have a chemical deficiency. And what I believe most people that have anxiety, that have a chemical deficiency, do not produce enough serotonin in the brain. And you don't have that chemical to keep you balanced, to keep that fight or flight mode out, because that's what technically a panic attack is. And your body imprints very quickly, and it'll remember that. There's a statistics that says once you have a panic attack, your body will always remember the fear and the feeling. Once you've had 2 panic attacks, you automatically become afraid of always having another panic attack. So your body remembers that, and you're always going to fear having a panic attack. So that's how intense it is. So I started to get back on the same medication that I was on, and unfortunately my body reacted really horrible. So now here I was having panic attacks and completely regretting getting off the medicine, trying to get back on the same medicine, and the medicine was giving me a very adverse reaction. A couple of things. First, I think that when you go on a medication, speak to a psychiatrist. Do not go to your general practitioner. That's not their specialty. Sometimes they start you at a higher dose than you're supposed to, and that's something that you're supposed to take at a very minimal dose until your body creates, or your brain creates, enough of the chemical, and then you keep going up. Otherwise, you're going to have pretty intense side effects. Unfortunately, it could be massive headaches, nausea, sometimes dizziness, fatigue. You will experience it, and it's pretty intense, okay? So at that point in my life, when I went to get back on the medication, my doctor put me back on my regular full dose, and the side effects were insane. I had worse panic attacks than the panic attacks I had before, and I was freaking out. It was a very horrible experience, which made it really difficult to get back on. So I went to see my psychiatrist, and he put me on a different medication, and we started at a very, very, very low dose. We started to go up, every couple of weeks until I was on the full dose of what was supposed to work for me, but that medicine didn't really work. I never felt alert. I never felt motivated like I used to be, and it was actually it actually made me very tired, and I felt like I was going to hyperventilate a lot of the times, which I never experienced before, and that would freak me out. So after about 6 months of being on that, again, I spoke with my doctor, and we switched back to the original medication that I was taking. I was able to transition from one to the other because my chemical had already built up that brain. There's a group of medications called ssris, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And what they do is that they keep I can't explain that very well. I'm going to have a pharmacist on our show here to explain chemically how that medication is composed and what it does to your brain, how it functions, because I'm very interested in knowledge, and I like to know what happens. I don't just take your word for things. I want to know how things react in my body and what my body is composed of, so that I can figure it out and I can understand the process and I can understand how to make it better. So to get back to where I was going, so we got back to the original medication that I was on. I felt a lot better, but the last 2 years I've really, really been struggling because I've never been able to get to the place of where I was when I got off the medicine. All those original phobias came back. One of them is really struggling with driving, especially on the highway, or driving in places that are far, because I do get the anxiety. So because I already know that, it will trigger a panic attack. A lot of other things are just always we call it anticipation anxiety. It's always anticipating that that panic attack is going to come, especially in certain situations. If I'm far, if I'm by myself. I don't like medical things. Anxiety makes me feel like I'm going to pass out. And so I'm petrified of passing out, even though I never have, and I probably never will with all these things that I've gone through and experienced. But that is one of the phobias. And so the reason why I wanted to create this video today is because I finally decided to maybe switch medicines. And maybe that medicine, sometimes when you are on a medication for so long, your body becomes resistant to it. And if you get off it and get back on, sometimes it just doesn't work for you anymore. So I spoke with my doctor last week, and we decided to switch to something different. Again, another medicine that's still in that family of SSRIs, but it's different because everyone responds very differently to each medicine. That's why sometimes people have to try 2 and 3 medications and dosages until you get to the right place, that sweet spot that really works for you. But so I switched, and it's been tough the last few days because it's giving me a lot of headaches, nausea, nightmares, and it's not a lot of fun. But the point of my video and the point of sharing this is that unfortunately there is a lot of taboo about having to take medication for it's mental illness, okay? Panic disorder is a mental illness. Anxiety disorder is a mental illness. PTSD is a mental illness. Depression is a mental illness. And people feel a very big stigma around it because a lot of people don't understand it. And when you say you have these things, people look at you like you're crazy. And the other part is that unfortunately you don't see it. It's not like a broken bone or something that you can get stitches for. It's in your brain. And so people have a misconception that you're making these things up. And you know, particularly me, I walk around with a smile on my face all the time. I'm very energetic. I'm very like up and up. And so people look at me and they're like, you have anxiety? You know, you're always smiling. You look perfectly fine to me. You don't look like there's anything wrong. But people don't know what's really going on inside and what you're thinking and the strength and the courage that it takes to get up and get through each day when you are literally panicking inside all of the time and anticipating that something's going to go wrong because this is chemical. So my message is really the reason why I wanted to do this video is 2 things. It's okay to take medication. I tried everything in my power to do this on a natural way, and I couldn't, and I regret getting off the medicine. I wish I never did because I've been struggling ever since. I've never felt the same. So if you have diabetes or if you have, heart disease, I definitely say you should work out first and watch your diet. But there is a point where you have to take medicine, okay? Some people need insulin. Some people need medicine for cancer. Some people need certain things, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? If you have it, you do it. But why is it that we feel so like taking medicine for something for your mind is so horrible? And it shouldn't be. And I know for me, one of the reasons why I wanted to get off was because I was so in my holistic, natural lifestyle that I thought that medicine was doing me harm, or no, I can do this on my own, I can breathe. And the more research that I do and the more that I go through life and the more experience that I've had, and a lot of the spiritual teachers that I follow have all experienced panic at one point, and they have even said it's impossible when you are in the middle of a legit full-blown panic attack, breathing, meditating, all that goes out the window, because in that moment you cannot come down to a level where you can ground yourself enough to breathe. Now you might have slight anxiety, you might feel it coming, and let's say if you, from a scale of 1 to 10, you're at a 2, you're at a 3, and at that point you can control it, okay? You can sit back and you can say I'm safe, your mantras, or you can do your breath work, or you can move around a little bit or distract yourself and use certain tools that really do minimize it. But once panic really goes over a 5 or a 6 and you're like at that level, I'm sorry, those things don't work. I've tried them over and over again. I don't care how many things I've learned, how much meditation I've done. In those moments, your adrenaline is so high that you can't just bring that down. It's at a point where you already lost the control over it. So do not be afraid to take medicine, and do not be afraid to say you take medicine. It is a need just like any other disease that there is out there, and there is nothing wrong with it. And we have so much advancement and so many different types of medication that can help you, that it's so important to really get it out there and talk about it and know that it's okay, and know that so many people experience it. One of my favorite people that I really look up to is Lady Gaga, because you know, here she is in the public eye, so successful, and she has severe disorders. She has psychotic disorders, and she's very, very open, and I appreciate her being so open about all of what she's gone through. And she calls it she has a baby rattle of medication that she has to take in order to keep her balanced. It's your brain. It's a chemical in your brain. You can't breathe that medication. You can't breathe that chemical in. You can't meditate or wish or manifest that chemical in. I wish you could. I think I would have achieved it by now. So it's something that you have to do. And I will never get off medicine again, ever in my life. I won't try that. And, you know, it's just one of those things that if you can do it without it, great. If you don't have it to that severity, more power to you. But it might not, you might not, and it's something that you might need. And there's some people that only need it for a certain amount of time because they're just going through an episode. And the quicker that you catch your panic attacks, if you just had like one or two, or you're feeling anxious, you know, and you get help right away, I think it's a lot easier to manage. But once you've experienced it for 3-4 years, and you know, it's the first time getting help, there's a lot more, I call it damage, or a lot more imprinting that you've already done that is a lot more difficult to get over. And some people, I just think it's chemical. For me, it's chemical. I do not produce serotonin. I wish I did. And I think it's genetic. I have a lot of family members going down the line that experience it. So genetically, I am composed this way. Aside from that, environmentally, I've also had things that have conditioned me to have the phobias that I have that then trigger the chemical reaction or the panic attack. So I hope that this just brings some enlightenment and just helps to make you feel like if you have to take medicine, it's okay, and talk about it and be proud of it and own it. Because when you own it and when you talk about it, it kind of breaks this pressure around you having to hide something or feeling like people are going to think you're crazy, because that's BS. There is no such thing. What you're experiencing is very, very, very real. Trust me, I've done years and years of therapy, and I've seen a whole bunch of doctors, and they've all explained it to me. You know, it's very real, and it's in the brain, so people can't see it because you can't touch it, but it's very real. That's worse than having a broken leg that you can just put a cast on and heal. You know, you can't see this, and there's been research, but it's not even like fully explained yet. People don't know, doctors don't know, scientists don't know why, how, where does it come from? It's so individual too. It's not the same for every person. So hope this makes you feel a little better. I'm very proud to say that I take medicine and it's kick-ass, and I couldn't do it without it. And I'm going to have a guest on here soon who's a pharmacist to help explain what these medications are, how they're composed, and what do they do chemically to the brain, so that you can understand it. Because I like knowledge, I need to understand, I like to digest, so then I can make sense of it, and then it's easier for it to help me. Hope this helps, guys. Share it with anybody, that a family member that is going through this, a friend, a student, a teacher. You know, just share it and be proud of it, own it, tag it, put it out there, talk about it. I think it's super important to get the idea of mental illness and mental wellness out there, and know that medication is not a taboo. There's nothing wrong with you if you have to take medicine. If you had heart disease, or if you had diabetes, or if you had some other type of disorder or a cold or whatever, you take medicine with no problem, right? This is the same thing. It's just we can't see it, we can't touch it, but it's the exact same thing. So it's nothing to feel ashamed of. All right, so more power to you, Verushka, your anxiety wing girl. I'm proud to say that I take medicine and it has helped me, and I'm super holistic because I still do all my things. I meditate, I do yoga, I work out, I eat healthy, I don't do sugar, I don't do caffeine, I do minimal chocolate because I freaking love chocolate. But doing all those things are a component to my well-being, and I can't just do those things on their own without the medicine. And if I just do the medicine and don't do the other things, guess what? Same thing. I'm not going to feel my very best. So put it out there. It's okay. Nothing wrong with it. I hope it helps, guys. Please help share my story. Help share the video with other friends. You know, let's get mental wellness, mental illness, let's get it out there. Let's make it part of the norm, which it already is. There's so much talk about it, and I'm so excited about it. But get it out there, you know, share with friends. And if you like this video, if you have ideas for other things, other topics you'd like me to share as I go on my journey, and I am your anxiety wing girl, and I talk about my anxiety, what it's like to live with it on a day-to-day basis, the things I focus on, you know, please hit subscribe down here so that we can get it out there and we can keep doing our thing. All right? Hope everybody has a kick-ass day. Love you all. Your anxiety wing girl, Verushka. Namaste, my friends.